The media are already trying to explain why Donald Trump or Kamala Harris may lose the election, and this analysis is so painfully wrong, I just had to debunk it. So hello everyone, welcome back to Underreported Stories, where I cover the news that CNN, MSNBC, and even Fox News fail to report on or don't report on enough. And today we're going to take a look at this Politico newsletter that is preemptively trying to explain the failures of each candidate. Now, I'm not even shocked that the media elites have horrible takes on why Donald Trump may lose tonight. It's kind of a given considering no one in media elite circles has their pulse on the center or the right side of the aisle. But the sad thing here is that they didn't even come up with a good or reasonable analysis for why Kamala may lose. So let's get into it. So again, this is Politico's morning newsletter, and it starts out by talking about how polls are about to close. And yes, it could take some time before we know who will be the president on January 20th. Now, Politico claims to know this much, that the story of how 2024 was written is going to come down to potentially how it was lost by one of these candidates. And it talks about being deadlocked in the polling in terms of Trump and Kamala being this close. While both of them are definitely projecting confidence, it really is a 50-50 election. Somebody being in a bad mood and not coming out to vote, that really could be the deciding factor in this election, or a couple of people being that way, I should say. Now, Politico goes on to say the recriminations battle is ugly stuff, but it can be almost as important as the election itself. It shapes how we think about what happened, why it happened, and what could be done differently in the future. So, in a sense, Politico is trying to say, we're going to break this down so that we can understand future elections. Now, the problem here, in my opinion, is that Politico has not gotten elections right in a couple of years, actually, and since Donald Trump really stepped on the scene, because they failed to understand the Trump voter. And because they failed to understand the Trump voter, or how this whole campaign works, and the base that votes for these people, they just struggle to analyze it, generally speaking. So when we're going back and doing these retrospective looks on what Trump did right and what Trump did wrong and what Kamala did right and what Kamala did wrong, it's really hard to believe them when they've gotten it so wrong so many times. So let me exemplify how wrong they are. So this is kind of the retrospective look through Politico's lens. If Trump loses, they believe it would be because Trump couldn't help being Trump. It says the Trump 2024 operation, unlike his previous campaigns, has generally been lauded for its professionalism and strategic focus. Keep the message focused on the economy and immigration, tie Harris to Joe Biden, and ask voters, under whose leadership were you better off? But time and time again, and especially over the past week, Trump has created a frenzy of distractions. Now, here's again what Politico fails to get wrong. People like Trump because he's unabashedly himself. In fact, it's one of the reasons why people don't like Kamala in comparison to him. The fact that Trump can go up there, riff, be himself, be funny. I mean, you can say a lot about the man. He is borderline a stand-up comedian. He is one of the funniest human beings I have ever heard speak in my entire life. He is so dang funny. And the fact that the media just have their heads so far up their butt, they don't understand what a joke is, which is time and time again something they've exemplified, is they don't understand jokes because they don't live in the real world. They don't understand his humor. Therefore, they don't understand that Trump being a strategically focused professional person in the election campaign, that's not going to help him. If anything, it's going to be the downfall of him. You saw time and time again Republicans who seem to be maybe more apt or adept at being president, like maybe a Ron DeSantis, somebody whose demeanor might fit more of what you would have thought a president should be like before 2016. He didn't win for a reason, because he was incredibly awkward when he got on stage and just not as likable. And Trump is so unabashedly himself. That's what voters like about him. So this stinginess that Politico is claiming would help the Trump campaign, it really never has. And then they go on to list crazy things like Donald Trump claiming that he wanted to aim guns at Liz Cheney. That is not at all what he says. I absolutely loved seeing this because it was so funny. The media were like, well, Donald Trump lies all the time. And then they proceeded to lie about Donald Trump's comments in like the same sentence if you watch media coverage of this event at all. In case you missed it, what happened was Donald Trump was on stage in, I believe, Glendale, Arizona with Tucker Carlson. They were having a conversation about Liz Cheney endorsing Kamala Harris. And Trump made a remark about how awful it was that Cheney funds the war machines that really keep us in these never-ending cycles of war with Ukraine and Israel, etc. And how Cheney's family, I mean, her dad pretty much operated the invasion into Iraq. So congratulations. Her dad in and of himself was the reason that we were in Afghanistan, in Iraq, and in these endless wars that marred the 21st century. And his comment was she should have to take up arms and have people pointing guns at her before she's sending people into these endless wars. The comment out of context is what's happening time and time again. I mean, look, he spoke about aiming guns at Liz Cheney. Not in the context. In context, his comments were not out of bounds at all. But again, this is the media's either purposeful or just inability to understand the Trump voter. Anyway, it goes on to say that Trump suggested he wouldn't be upset if a would-be assassin had to shoot through the face. He's taken a bullet, okay? Calm down. He can make a damn joke. And then saying that he shouldn't have left the White House in 2021 and endorse handing the public health infrastructure to fluoride truther RFK. Oh my gosh. Their inability to understand that Americans no longer want to be fat zombies is also just something that boggles my mind. It's because they're all a bunch of fat zombies. I mean, look at the women on CNN. Anyway, that was really mean of me, but I don't care. This is the other retrospective analysis on this. Donald Trump picked the wrong running mate. No, he didn't. As somebody who didn't want to vote for Donald Trump again, I just was kind of over it. I just kind of wanted to move on. Maybe like 2 or 3 years ago, JD Vance was actually a positive for me, okay? I don't think that this was as bad as it made it out to be. This is so funny, this analysis. Reading this analysis is what prompted me to want to make this video. It says, Trump chose JD Vance in July for what seemed like a much different race. Coming off a failed assassination attempt, he looked near unbeatable against a feeble and unpopular Biden. But it's hard not to wonder now whether a Glenn Youngkin or Nikki Haley would have been better suited to what the race became than a MAGA hardliner. Absolutely not. Absolutely not. Nikki Haley, no. You would have MAGA people pissed off that Nikki Haley was on there. It's not going to drive out the vote to have somebody that fundamentally disagrees with almost everything that Donald Trump does. That makes no sense at all. It would be really dumb to pick someone that fundamentally disagrees with so many of the things that you say. And the things that the media portrays Vance as being bad at, he's so much better than he is bad. Watch him on any news outlet, any podcast interview. He's so normal. He's so cute. His love of his family and his just ability to be normal, just sit there and be like shooting the shit, being a normal person. As soon as you kind of move back the facade of what the mainstream media tells you he is, he's a pretty sick guy with a pretty awesome backstory. And he came into the race, and I actually do feel he would have been better suited to go against Kamala, because Kamala loves to pick at the whole racial inequities of the world, whereas JD Vance is an example of somebody who is white, but lived a much, much harder life than Kamala ever had to. And so putting them and stacking them up against each other when you were picking your VP candidate was actually a really smart idea, because JD Vance and Trump were hitting at that kind of populist classism that actually made Bernie Sanders very popular. So that pick, in hindsight, not bad at all. Very good pick. Really proud of the pick. Let me know if you disagree in the comments, and if so, who would you have wanted to see? Now, what I find to be very funny is that Vance, his edginess is what Politico says, is what caused the Trump campaign to lead into the eating the dogs moment and the childless cat lady comments. Both of those have been actually quite funny. especially the eating the dogs, eating the cats. I can't get that song out of my head. It's a TikTok meme now, and everybody does it. We're eating the dogs. We're eating the cats. Eat the cats. Eat the cats. Yeah? It's so dang funny. What Politico takes to be something like serious and awful and like they're pearl clutching, TikTok has made into like something really fun and cool for the younger generation. And so, yes, I don't find that to be problematic at all. I also love this one, this point from Politico. He repelled women again and again. Hi, woman for Trump again. Like, he's had this issue since 2016. This is not new. To think that this is problematic in the 2024 campaign, this is problematic for literally every single Republican. Democrats have done a very good job, whether you believe it or not, that Democrats have just done a really good job at creating an infrastructure and creating lies around abortion policy and what Republicans want to do about it. Donald Trump has actually been incredibly wonderful for women. He wants to bring abortions to states' rights issue, which is actually all Kamala can do too. She's not going to get the votes to pass Roe versus Wade into law, which is also the stupidest thing in the world. They're not going to overturn Dobbs, okay? Secondly, he wants to keep women's sports women, so like I'm cool with Trump as a woman. Anyway, I think that's a really stupid introspect. This is an even dumber introspective. I mean, like, finally, before we move on to Kamala, this one says, Donald Trump let the inmates run the asylum. He farmed out big chunks of the GOP ground game to Turning Point USA's Charlie Kirk and political novice Elon Musk. Now, I can't say too much because I do work at Turning Point USA as a contributor. I'm not like on their full-time payroll, just like I work for them each month. The ground game has been pretty impressive comparative to previous election cycles for the GOP. So not really see Elon Musk, also an incredibly popular individual, not seeing what the problem is there. The Democrats have outsourced their outreach to Lizzo, Cardi B, and Usher. So I'm not quite sure that this lands the way that Politico thought it would land. Now, I understand the criticism for like a Corey Lewandowski or a Laura Loomer. I understand that. And I get that, you know, there are crazies or people that appear crazy online on every single side. They exist on the left and the right. The fact that Politico thinks that the average voter, your independent voter, is turning out because of what Laura Loomer says is quite frankly so delusional. But let's get into their analysis on if Harris loses, okay? This is why Politico believes Kamala Harris might lose the election. She took the reins too late. Already, most Democratic officials we've spoken to agree if anyone should get the blame for a Trump win, it's Biden. The president's insistence on running again at age 81 and taking weeks still to bow out following his abysmal debate performance cost Harris precious time. No one would be saying this if it was Michelle Obama. Literally no one. I mean, it would always be a talking point, but Michelle Obama would be polling not at 50-50 with Donald Trump. She would be wiping him out of the water. So I don't know if it's necessarily solely Joe Biden to blame. I think it goes 50-50. So that might be a small part of it, but that's only part of the story. You can say sure that Kamala Harris should have had more time to explain herself to voters, but she didn't. That was the reality. And so what you do with that reality after is how you should look at it in retrospective, right? What did she do with that time allotted to her? Because she couldn't change the reality, but she could change the way that she operated in that reality. And she did a shit job. That's what she did. She confused the voters because we had to look at her 2019 record and compare it to who she is now. And she's apparently changed so much, we couldn't keep up. So it also goes on to say that she picked the wrong running mate. Now, this here I might agree with. I have been saying from the beginning that I thought she should have picked Pennsylvania Governor Josh Shapiro. Outside of the Democratic bubble, no decision is prone for more Wednesday morning quarterbacking than Harris's choice of Tim Walz. Of course, he has been known to lie time and time again. He is really cringy, quite frankly, he comes across as kind of gay, not in like the fun gay of like actual gay people, just like weird gay, you know? And then he has such a bad history with like potential sexual assault, allegations, all of these problems. And then Kamala's also sitting there going, well, I picked him when I was sleep deprived. It's like, what? This one, I agree with like wholeheartedly with Politico on this. This was really, 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 really bad on the Kamala campaign to pick Tim Walz. It didn't help her. Josh Shapiro, popular governor in Pennsylvania, if it falls down to the Democrats lose Pennsylvania, it's on Kamala's gut. Literally, that's what they lost the election on. It goes on to say, Kamala didn't pivot hard enough to the center. Your YouTube video did not stop. I'm just laughing in my mind really hard. She didn't pivot hard enough to the center. No one knows where she's on her policy positions. The election is today, and I don't know what her policy positions are. They are literally, I will follow the law. Congratulations, bitch. We all want you to follow the law. Whoever you are, everyone should follow the law. It's the dumbest fucking answer I've ever heard, but that's exactly what she said in every single interview. It's not her inability to pivot to the center. It's about her inability to pick a damn lane and properly articulate that. But that would be offensive to Kamala Harris. And good. If you're a good journalist doing good, thoughtful analysis, it doesn't matter whose ego or agenda you hurt. You speak the truth, you get it out there, and you tell Kamala Harris the problem here was not with you not being too much to the center. The problem was you had two lanes in front of you and you couldn't pick a damn lane. That was her problem. I mean, if you could just give her one problem, that was it. We couldn't tell whether she wanted taxpayer-funded abortions or she wanted Roe v. Wade to be left up to this. Like, you couldn't tell based on the interview and who she was pandering to. I couldn't even tell where she's from, or she's American, but like you couldn't even tell her ethnicity because she would change her damn accent all the time. Do you know what I mean? Like, she was just such a dang phony. I couldn't understand her. At least with Trump, I knew where he was coming from. You didn't have to like it, but you know what he wants. It's just, that was her fundamental problem. And I think that is the ultimate downfall of her. And the final thing that Politico says is that Kamala was too fond of the F word. Now, I wish it was fuck too, but that would have made her a little bit more, not sympathetic, relatable, maybe is the word. If she just dropped an F-bomb and it was funny, but no, she talked about her Glock. Like, that was the only thing she tried to do to be relatable, and then Democrats hated her for it. But anyway, she was apparently too fond of using the word fascist for Trump. Now, I don't think Kamala lost the election because of Biden's garbage comments. I don't think she lost the election because she openly called Trump a fascist. We knew she thought that we were Nazi fascist pieces of garbage this entire time. This is not new information to any Donald Trump supporter. She lost the election. Like I said, if she loses the election, she lost it because no one knew who they were voting for. It was either people who are Democrats voting for a Democrat because they sycophantically vote for Democrats, or people that were not going to vote for her because they didn't know who she was. Also, my final point on making this, that of course nowhere in Politico does she talk about, or does anybody talk about, is the fact that the long prevailing ideology was that individuals in, I would say, the 27 and under demographic, so my age and younger, Gen Z, we were going to all of a sudden come out in droves for Kamala because she's hashtag brat. Ha! No. Young people are still incredibly disillusioned by both parties, by the two-party system. And generally speaking, they're not fond of what the last 4 years looked like. There are a lot of people who are going to quietly go vote for Donald Trump because they liked their life from 2016 to 2019, pre-pandemic, than they did in comparison to their life post-pandemic to now. Just saying. And so they're going to go quietly vote for Donald Trump in Gen Z, and they're not going to talk about it. The only people that are young and sycophantically voting for Donald Trump are people who are obsessed with abortion. The other people that are claiming like democracy is the main reason they're voting, they don't like Kamala Harris either because they see her as some sort of dictator as well. So just so you know, the young people are still disillusioned. As a heads up, that was not supposed to sound sassy to you guys. I love you guys. That was supposed to sound really sassy to the mainstream media, which was a crap job of analyzing all of this stuff. This is just an utter failure of the media. But those same media entities that got the Trump or Kamala loss analysis so wrong are also the ones that are going to have millions of ears on election night tonight. So make sure you share this video with someone who might need their eyes open to how bad the election night media coverage will be. And if you're a real one and you made it to the end of today's show, will you drop the red heart emoji if you think that Trump is going to win and the blue heart emoji if you think that Kamala is going to win? Now, I don't want to know who you voted for, because who you voted for and who you think is going to win, those could be two different things. So maybe, I don't know, split the hearts, do one of each if you think that one's going to win and one's going to lose, or you voted for one and you think one's going to lose. Either way, just drop your emojis in the comments. We'll chat down there and I'll talk to you then. Thanks, friends. Thanks so much for watching. If you liked what you heard, please be sure to give this video a thumbs up and leave a comment about how beautiful, stunning, and funny I am. And if you want more content based in logic, be sure to click over here for more videos and clips of my show. If you have the means to financially support the show, consider purchasing from my merch line, Based Apparel, linked right below. I really appreciate it, and I'll see you back here next time. Bye, friends.